Hello guys, Charles here and welcome back to my channel. So this video is for anyone who's confident with their caged system arpeggios already, but wants to keep practicing their arpeggios in new and challenging ways. The more ways, the more paths we can get from the beginning to the end of an arpeggio, the more confident we are at finding these notes all over the instrument. These exercises I'm going to show you today are the way I'm currently working on my arpeggios, and I found they're a really great way to tie together the lead and the rhythm aspects of our guitar playing. So without further ado, let's dive straight into these. So our caged position arpeggios are all very head to toe, they're very vertical. So there's a lot of up and downwards movement, and even when we shift between two shapes, it's a shift and then we go up or down again. So the exercises I'm going to show you today are based primarily on horizontal movement, and again we can add elements of vertical movement into these, but it's primarily horizontal, just like the caged position are primarily vertical. So let's do all of these exercises on an A minor 7 or a C6 chord, and of course you want to change these to fit other chord types as well. So the first one's going to be just using two notes. Now this is called a dyad. Now the great thing about dyads is, as I mentioned earlier, they can be used as a lead playing device or a very sparse rhythm tool. If you just want to add a little bit of movement in your playing but you don't want to do full chords, then a dyad is often a really nice thing to do. So firstly, we want to make sure we can play these as chords, or dyads in this instance, but simultaneously, and then we want to make sure we can play them as some sort of broken chord or arpeggio device. So here it is as chords on the low two strings. That's all that is, and we can now pick one note at a time and create little patterns like this. Now of course that one has, because there's only two notes, there's a bit too much movement in that one, so that one's better as a chord playing device. It's nice to just use that for dyads, but when we're picking there's a bit too much sliding going on there, but occasionally you might want that sound. So next up we can move to 3 strings. Now just before we do, it is worth saying that make sure you practice each of these on every string set, because of course the shapes on the G and B string are going to be different than the shapes on the low E and A string, unless you tuned in fourths. So make sure you practice all of these on every string set. So next up is 3 notes per chord. So we're going to just use this simple shape here. And again, we're playing a A minor 7 chord, but this is only an A minor triad. Now when we move into our new position, that now looks like a C, but A minor and C played simultaneously give us that A minor 7 sound. So here's these positions. So a nice bit of chord movement there. Again, if you just want a little move but you don't want to use a full 4 or 5 note chords, that's a really nice way of doing it. And then again we can play these as broken chords. Just something simple like that. We're moving through those positions. Again, making sure we're practicing that on all string sets. So for example, if we started on the D string, we'd have something like this. Nice and simple, but important to make sure we can do this everywhere. And the final one would be a 4-note chord before we move. Now this is getting into the same territory as what we talked about in the piano voicings video. If you haven't seen that one, do check it out up here, but we're now talking about this as arpeggios. Now this is similar to what we talked about with the diminished chord video, which again, if you haven't seen that one, you can check that out up here. We talked about how to take those piano voicings and turn them into linear vocabulary. The issue with 4-note voicings is, especially in the lower end of the guitar, they're just not practical. They're just a big stretch like this. So for example, A minor 7's okay because I can use the open G string. But if I want B flat minor 7, my hand has to look like that, and that's just not very practical. So the low end, it doesn't really work. So let's move up to the 12th fret, and we're going to use the middle 4 strings, because again, if we cross over from the G to the B string, it reduces the stretch slightly because those strings are only 1/3 apart. So we're going to do A minor 7 still, but we're going to do it up in this position. And so we've got these chords here. So you see how difficult those are. I was really taking my time there to try and play those the best I could. Pretty tricky. However, when we use those same shapes as broken chords or arpeggios, the great thing is we don't need to have every note pressed down simultaneously. Our hand can move. Let's hear these as broken chords now on arpeggios. So something along those lines. Now in the top end of the guitar, these are actually very useful, as we discussed in the diminished video, because we can sweep these quite comfortably. So at this end of the guitar, I can play just a simple little sweeping pattern that sounds quite interesting. Just something really simple like that, where I'm just moving through two of the shapes and sweeping them, and I can get a little bit of flair, a little bit of speed going there. Now these are a bit easier to do in the lower end than playing them as chords, but still I don't think it's hugely practical. To avoid using an open string, I'm going to do this on, let's do it on the low B, and I'll do like B minor 7. That sort of thing, but if I wanted that sound, I'd probably instinctively just go for this sort of arpeggio. That's just what I'm used to playing. And then finally, once you're confident with some of these shapes, you might want to start trying to move them over several strings. So if we go back to our diads, our 2-note ones, you might do a nice little movement like this. So all I was doing there is 2 positions on the bottom string, and then rather than staying on that string set and going here, I'm playing those same 2 notes but on the next string. 2 positions on this string, 2 positions on this string, 2 positions here, 2 positions here, and then to finish off, just another 2 positions. So I hope you found some of those useful. You'll notice that we're very horizontal here as opposed to the very vertical caged positions, and I think tackling the problem from both directions and working on blending them together, as I was starting to demonstrate there at the end, is a really great way to better understand your arpeggios. Even though I could already do my caged position arpeggios in my sleep, they were easy for me. I've been doing those for 15 years or something like that. Moving into these horizontal ones, I found these surprisingly difficult. So it just proves that although I know my arpeggios and I know all of my positions, I know all my note names on the guitar, actually practicing something in a different way does still challenge that area of your brain a bit more. So find new ways to practice things that you think you've already mastered, and you'll be amazed at how difficult they can be. If you found this one useful, please do give it a like, subscribe, ding that notification bell, and share with any of your friends who need to practice their arpeggios. And as always, I hope you're all doing very well, getting plenty of practice in, and I very much look forward to seeing you in the next one. Cheers.
Roll up, let me embed a story you'll never forget. A drip, drip, but drowning in debt now. You can't buy your way out. And